I think that's something that we see a lot in the space is that you have a product that's technically better than anything else in the market. But you need to show that to the world.
You got to market it.
Yeah.
You got to explain your story.
Exactly. You have to explain your story. You have to show people. You have to make people try it. And so when you dive into the Aptos ecosystem, you see that 100%. You try the products and you're like, oh, wow, this is so fast and this is so great. And I just wish in the ecosystem we had a little bit more of a loud voices, but I think it's coming.
Today's guest is Alix Musset, the Ecosystem Success Manager at Aptos Labs. If you don't know already, Aptos is one of the fastest growing blockchains out there. We work with them at Token Relations, so it's got a special place in my heart. I've been covering them since their very early days, if not day one. And they have over 2 billion total transactions and 1.25 billion in total value locked. And it has integrated a number of enterprise businesses from Stripe to TradFi firms like BlackRock and so on. I'm excited to have Alix here today to talk about that, ecosystems, and just a whole lot more. Alix, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for being here. To start off,
you said my name perfectly,
I did?
Which is very rare. So
okay, but you got a nice French name. I wanted to do it justice, you know.
You did.
How did you get into the space? Tell me like your journey here.
So I feel like a lot of people who come on your podcast will say they start in the space very, very early on, which is not necessarily my case. I got into the space in 2020. Surprisingly, like a lot of people during the pandemic, I feel like there wasn't much to do. And so, you know, you have more time to learn about new things and kind of explore, especially if it's related to money. I want to say this is something that's attractive, right? And so that's when I first learned about crypto as a whole. And I was on the trading side, right? My very first token was XRP, which is a good day to hold XRP.
As many are, yeah. Do you still have it?
Yeah. Actually, I have not opened my wallet since 2020.
You gotta look.
Yeah,
Maybe
I do.
We could look on this episode. See how much you're up.
I think it's in my Binance Europe phone.
Ooh, okay. So
account.
you got to fly back to Europe
And
to check it out.
I have it with me at home. I have to VPN it to access it, exactly. But so that was the very first, and I held it. So it's also, close to my heart. It's like emotional token at this point. I don't think I'll ever sell. Anyway, that's beside the point. And then I like to go very deep into understanding how things work. And so I was like, what is this brand new currency that's entirely digital working? What's a blockchain? Why is it called blockchain even? And then you get to figure out this because there's blocks. So it makes actually a lot of sense. And they're chained together, blockchain, you know what I mean? So I started to kind of dive deeper into the tech side. And then I, was at the right place at the right time. I want to say there's a big part of luck in the story. And I wanted to build my own protocol. And so I had two co-founders who were more on the technical side, and I'm more on the other thing that's non-technical.
Me too, yeah.
Yeah, right? you did those people too.
I'm non-technical, it's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was my side of the equation. And we started to build a protocol that was linking digital and physical assets on-chain. And we were focused on the fashion industry. And so it was like a B2B2C model where we used NFC chips. And it would have been implemented. I say would have been because it didn't go all the way, obviously. And now that I'm at Aptos, which is, I think, a better place maybe. But anyway, that's kind of the story. And that's how I got really deep. And I learned a lot about the space. And then I was also very lucky because at the same time in 2022, when I was building this protocol, I'm a massive fan of the artist The Weeknd. And I got to work with him. He was doing a program in collaboration with Binance and StockX, actually. Yeah.
Wait, when was that?
It was in the summer of 2022.
I didn't know he was into
It was so
crypto.
random. I was on Instagram.
Yeah.
And I see Lamar. Lamar is his creative director that's been with him from the very beginning when they dropped out of high school in Toronto. So he's very responsible for the brand, The Weeknd's branding, essentially. And I saw a video of him talking about NFTs and whatnot. And I was like, wait, what is that about? And he was putting out an announcement that they were taking applications to be in this program and that more details would be disclosed later. So I go into the application page and you had to talk about the space, what you know, what you do, touch a portfolio. So it was great for me. It was a mix of art and the space, the crypto space, right? And at my surprise, honestly, I was selected.
So you worked with The Weeknd?
And yeah, I did get to meet him and we worked with his team there, which was an incredible experience. And I met a lot of very creative and smart people. There was about 20 of us, I think, that got selected.
Wow.
Yeah.
I did not know that about you.
And well, there you go. Now you do.
Yeah. Okay. Wait. So what was that like? Because I feel like so many celebrities out there, start NFT collections or, they launch a token just for a quick buck.
Yeah.
I'll give Iggy Azalea, or is he Azalea? Like, I always mess up her name.
I say Iggy Azalea,
Iggy,
but
right?
I'm also not American, so I might say it wrong entirely.
No, I think you're right. But I feel like so many, and she's aside because she actually like really honed in on it.
Yes.
Yeah, but most of them out there aren't. So like, what was that like?
So what I really liked about it is that when we stepped into the space and they were explaining to us the concept, the first thing that we were told is think outside of trading, think outside of pumping a price, and think of the experience and what it's actually going to bring to the people. It was very experiential, but Binance was sponsoring his world tour actually. And so essentially what would happen is that when people buy a ticket, they get an NFT, but they don't know it's an NFT. It's completely seamless. It comes, in your email. And so it was a lot of fun, and then we were put in teams essentially with someone who was like one or two people more technical, people on the creative side, people on the more project management side. And then we had to present it to a group of very impressive judges. Yeah. That was a little scary. There was him. There was Ahmed, who's a co-founder of House Labs. That's who we did it through. So yeah, it was, and there was Matt Medved was there from NFT Now. So yeah, that's
so wild. That actually kind of reminds me, and we'll get into Aptos, but Aptos's wallet is the like lead wallet for that festival in Japan.
World Expo?
Yes, the expo. Yes. Thank you. You could say it way better than I can. But that's like a perfect example of like giving people an engaging experience, but not like shoving in their face that it's powered by a blockchain or something, right?
And I think that's so important. And I think we'll get deeper into that part. But yeah, with the recent announcement that we made regarding Ash Palette, that's going to be, we're going to have a big involvement on multiple fronts, which, I can't exactly speak on which precisely yet, but and obviously wallet will be involved.
Yeah. Okay. So taking a step back, you went from fashion to the Weeknd to Aptos. Why here? Why now? Without chilling too much, but you could chill a little.
No,
what brought you here?
It's interesting because I feel like a lot of people end up where they are because they kind of like apply to different type of jobs and took the best offer, honestly. Yeah. It was not the case at all for me. And I chose Aptos in a very organic way. So while we were building this protocol, obviously we had to decide which chain that was going to happen on. And that was before Aptos was live on mainnet. And so David Tixon reached out to us and said, hey, there's these two new blockchains, Sui and Aptos, and they're having an event that's going to be called Trilemma in San Francisco. And I think that was during the summer of 2022 as well. And you should come out and meet the teams and, check it out. We were in between, thinking about building on Solana potentially, but for the use case that we wanted, we had some concerns when it comes to scalability. And the network can be really slow. And that's something when you do something that has a very, very strong emphasis on user experience that you can't really allow yourself. And so when we heard that Aptos was spun out of Facebook, which is still to this day, #1 social platform out there, we're like, okay, let's do this. Let's go and meet those people. So we flew from New York to San Francisco. And it was the very first Aptos office, smaller space than they have now in Palo Alto. Right. And I got to meet with the team. Fun fact, actually, we were talking about the fact that we're not on the technical side. Yeah. The very first person that I talked to was Aline. Yeah. Who's more than technical. Yeah. He has a PhD in cryptography.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And it was hilarious because I was like, okay, what are we going to talk about? Yeah. But no, he's the nicest person. He still is to this day the nicest person. But yeah, and after meeting the team, honestly, and I met Mo for the first time there too, that's when we were like, okay, we're going to be building on Aptos. And it wasn't live yet, which also gives us time to build the protocol up. So yeah, that's how we chose Aptos as a chain. So I became part of the Aptos ecosystem very, very early on. One of the first protocols to build, and we planned on launching around November of 2022.
Okay, I know that time frame very well from my reporter days.
I'm
FTX,
sure.
Finance, they were going at it.
Exactly.
FTX bankruptcy, fraud, all the everything and
above,
everything,
right? Yeah, exactly.
Bad times for the market. Yes.
Exactly, which is really important for the rest of my career in a way. But it's a product. When software and hardware are involved, it becomes very expensive, right? And so we were already having conversations with investors. Actually, Keith Grossman has a pretty special place in my path as well. And it's also related to you. So I'm going to tell you about that in a bit. But yeah, it's basically the interest around crypto and the fear, spread so hard that the interest really went down as far as investment goes. And brands' willingness to play more with something that's on chain. So we knew it was going to be really hard. And so instead of going towards the classic fundraising side, we went towards more of a ICO type of front with NFTs, and we wanted to launch a collection. Along the way, I obviously was working very closely with Aptos. Move being a brand new language, there's a little bit of a learning curve. And so the team was super available already at the time to help people build on top of it. So I was with them very often. I was going to a lot of events, which led me to know Mo pretty well and meet Neil a couple of times. And at some point, they asked me if I would be interested in joining the ecosystem team. And I said yes. Yeah. And I've been at Aptos since then. It's been 1.5 years now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
What does your job mean to you in the sense that you are ecosystem success manager?
Yes.
I haven't heard that title before. So first of all, let's define your definition of ecosystem. And then also, what does success look like to you? And how do you kind of drive that?
I think that's a great question. I go to a lot of events in the space and I meet a ton of people. And I always hear the most craziest titles. And I'm always like, but what
Chief
does that
Vibes
mean?
Officer. Yeah.
Well, that one actually means something to me.
Right.
Sometimes I would meet two people from the exact same company. One is the head of a department and another person is the lead of that same department. And I'm like, so who is who? What's your, someone is always the lead of the head of something. It becomes a little big mix. So no, I think it's a great question because I was what we call like more of a general ecosystem manager. Which goes from kind of everything that has to do with the ecosystem itself. Ecosystem is not enterprise. It's the earlier stage startups. And I would say companies that are more Web3 native. Enterprise usually will implement some Web3 features into existing product. Take NBC Universals, for example. And then the ecosystem is everything that has to do with Web3 native applications and startups that we're helping build from the ground up. And so it goes in different directions. There's the people who have already a product are looking to integrate Aptos as part of other chains. And so we kind of help them on the integration and having access to indexer and everything. And then there's the ones who have a really great idea who also help with funding. So we have a pretty extensive grant program that we use to support on the funding side. And then we have on the go-to-market strategy. We do bring pretty heavy support on helping them with their TGEs as well. And then obviously everything that has to do with fundraising and marketing and everything that's going to make them successful, essentially.
Yeah.
So that's what it does. And then within the ecosystem team, we are pretty much classified with different verticals. We have a pretty big team that's around DeFi, obviously. Then we have some people who are more gaming oriented. We have people who are more regional. So for example, we have 2 people in India. And for me, I was more on apps that were consumer facing. And that includes obviously social.
Right.
But then my role kind of changed over the 1.5 years to become ecosystem success manager. The reason being that I actually ended up being in touch with all of the teams within the ecosystem, no matter the vertical. And my involvement has increased into becoming something that's very related to giving them visibility. So I plan a lot of our ecosystem-focused events and the content that goes to it. And I help them get speaking spots whenever possible and get visibility over their product in physical spaces. And because of that, I became more of the ecosystem success, which also touches community because I essentially help the existing ecosystem successfully launch or, launch campaigns, whatever it may be. So hence the title.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. I have a few follow-up questions. You brought up the DeFi category, which obviously Aptos is blowing out of the water. You guys have got 1 million announcements all the time, which is a great thing, and with some really big partners. But aside from DeFi, what other sectors do you think really make sense on this network and you think will continue to thrive, if not already?
So I think DeFi is important for any blockchain, really, to be honest. I think you need to have a very big and healthy DeFi ecosystem, because I think DeFi is the application that's been proven to work when it comes to blockchain technologies more than any other, if we're truthful.
It's at the heart of it, yes.
Right. That's my honest opinion, is I don't think that we've seen relevant Web3 application or use cases that are not in the DeFi spectrum yet. So I think it's important for any ecosystem, really. But Aptos specifically has the network infrastructure to support very efficient trading, for example, right? It's very cheap to use. It's very fast to use. And it's been proven to be scalable, right? So it gives you all the tools that you need, essentially, to have a great DeFi experience. And then we have a lot of different protocols, whether it's lending and borrowing, perps, dexes. One launched today, actually. I don't know if you saw.
I did not. What was it?
Teddy's Market. It's
okay, yes.
It's a DEX aggregator, but it also has like a perps DEX.
There we go. You guys should go check it out.
Go check it out. It launched today.
Yeah.
So yeah, and I think, I've had experiences myself where still the other day I was so frustrated because I wanted to bridge ETH to Base, and it cost me so much money.
It always costs money to use Ethereum.
You start, yes, it does, right?
Cut. No, I'm kidding.
Cut it. We're doing it again.
That's it. Yeah.
No, but it's the reality
it's a
of it.
problem, and it's something that I think maybe to the point you're about to make is like it needs to be solved, right?
Yes, it needs to be solved, because I would agree that when you're someone who's been in the space for years and years, and you're pretty much a day trader, and that's all you do, and you trade 5-6 figures, you're not going to care that much about the fees that are associated with your transaction or with bridging. Sure. But this is a very, very big minority of people.
Yeah.
And so when you think about the more regular user, which I would classify myself as a more regular user, this is just frustrating. You start off your trade, you're negative already. You know what I mean? And so that's something that's been always very frustrating. And then I think Solana is an amazing blockchain for many reasons. And I think the community there is amazing. And I have been in the Solana ecosystem for some time too, but I still to this day have issues where my transactions just won't go through.
Yeah.
It's taking forever, and then it's refused. And that's also, the type of friction that are unnecessary. Yeah. And Aptos solves all of that. So
there we go.
That's why.
Yeah. I think in terms of Aptos, it is a Move-based programming language. So obviously you're getting Move developers. There's a few different Move ecosystems, but you guys definitely one of the top, if not the. How do you kind of think about, one, bringing those Move developers to Aptos? And then also, what about EVM developers, those who are not building on Move? How do you kind of integrate them, if at all, right now?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's obviously a question that we ask ourselves constantly also, because, you always want more and need more. The funny part is that there was no Move developers to start with, right? Aside from the people who actually built the chain.
Who left Facebook to build this.
Exactly.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. And so we actually created or educated people to become Move developers alongside other chains who also use the Move language. But so they grew with us in that sense, right? Now, the question is, how do you incentivize people to learn the Move language? Because if you already work with Rust and Solidity, you need to see upsides from learning another language, because it's a little bit of a learning curve, obviously, right? We have incredible dev documentation. Obviously, that's completely available and out there. I think the bigger question is, what would make people want to use it? And so thankfully, with the early devs that we've had that share their experience, what happens is that learning Move is fairly easy, especially if you know Rust. It's pretty close language. But also we are able to show what upsides it brings on a tech standpoint on, how much better your performance is going to be. And I think it's more so by demonstrating all that it unlocks on a tech standpoint and what you're going to be able to do that we are onboarding more people. And then obviously making it easy to access those resources. Our dev team is incredibly available as well for any questions. So that helps a lot.
I've seen the office hours.
You've seen the office hours, right?
Yeah.
Not only the office hours, but they are incredibly available on, Discord and Telegram and at any time of the day. I'm telling you, on December 25th, Christmas, they're going to be on it, quite literally.
Crypto is 24/7.
It is.
Yeah.
And so when you work for blockchain, you have to be as well, which they are. And they're very, another, I think, important point is that psychologically, I think you're more attached to something and to sharing it when you've created it. And so because a large portion of the engineers at Aptos created the language, it's a personal story for them, right? It becomes a personal quest to want and have people learn it and help them improve it and all that. So I think that's also why they're so dedicated to it.
How would you describe the developers on Aptos? Like, what is the vibe that they're bringing to the chain that maybe other chains don't necessarily have? Within
the team or within the ecosystem?
I was thinking the ecosystem, but we could do both. Let's do the team and the ecosystem. Make it harder.
I'm a Aptos.
Double answer. Yeah.
The team at Aptos is incredible. Right. That's something that I am very, very lucky about. There's things happening like absolutely every single company in the world, but we get along really well. There's a really good vibe of people that just, we opened an office in New York because there was more and more people, but now that we've opened it, people who were not in New York before that are in our team are moving there because it's such a great atmosphere and we really work well together and we share a lot of moments outside of work together too. And they're very, very smart, which I love being around people who are smarter than me.
Same.
Right?
Yeah.
There's something
Always
about it.
Always love learning. 100%.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to be the dumbest person in the room.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And that's how I feel a lot of time at Aptos. So
well, you're not dumb, but yes, I get what you're saying.
But you know
to
what
be
I mean.
Among smart people as well, yes.
I think in the team there's like 20 people who have a PhD.
Yeah, I don't have a PhD.
I don't have any diploma for that matter.
And look at us.
And look at us on the podcast.
No,
on your podcast for that matter.
No, you're too kind.
It's even more impressive.
Yeah.
No, but so I'm surrounded by people who have great energy, very hardworking, and are insanely smart. So it's really, I think I'm very lucky. When my friends who are not in the space hear me talk about my coworkers and stuff, they're like, "Oh, yeah, that's what? What do you mean you like going to your holiday party? That's not normal." And I'm like, "Yeah."
What do you mean you like traveling with them? Yeah,
exactly. No, it's really amazing, and I think it helps a lot of the cross-functional collaboration also within Aptos, obviously. Within the ecosystem, I would also argue that we have some of the brightest minds. We have people who got to learn the Move language and master it and use it very, very well. So insanely smart people. We have people who really wanted to showcase what the tech and what the Move language can do. And I've always been super impressed by the level of technicity that lies within the ecosystem. Now, what I would say is I always have a good time when I see them at events and everything. I think we have a ton of really smart and very technically advanced people who create amazing applications and things that you couldn't do on any blockchain before. What I wish was a little bit more present was people speaking more loudly about what they created. I think that's something that we see a lot in the space is that you have a product that's technically better than anything else in the market, but you need to show that to the world.
You got to market it.
Yeah.
You got to explain your story.
Exactly. You have to explain your story. You have to show people. You have to make people try it. And so when you dive into the Aptos ecosystem, you see that 100%. You try the products and you're like, oh, wow, this is so fast and this is so great. And I just wish in the ecosystem we had a little bit more of a loud voices, but I think it's coming. I think it's the next step. I think the first step was to get people to really master the technology and put it into actual use cases, mainly into DeFi, right? And others as well. We have like companies like Kid Labs who do ticketing, and they moved actually from Solana to Aptos because of the tech. So I think it's coming. Now that people are mastering the tech more, putting it to use cases, they're ready with their product launch, they're going to be moving on to being louder about it.
Yeah. I mean, like, for me personally, one of the reasons we started Token Relations was to provide these blockchains the ability to amplify their ecosystem's voices, the builders, the developers, the community members, because Aptos will never have a problem getting a headline. You know, you guys have become big enough now.
Yeah.
But what about those building on top of you?
Yeah.
You know, they don't have that microphone, or some of them don't even have the drive or ability to tell a story. Yeah. And that's not to knock them at all. I'm sure they're all extremely smart in their own ways, but storytelling might not be a natural fit for them, whereas for us, it is, you know, and so.
Yeah, that's a totally fair point. I think it's very rare, actually, to combine an insane technical ability with an insane...
I've interviewed a lot of technical founders. They're not that great at telling their story, but that's where I come in, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's where you come in entirely.
And that's not an ego boost. It's just like, that's just what I do best. I'm not technical, but I could tell your story in a non-technical way.
I've seen you do it for so long.
Yeah.
So little story time. The first time I met you, I didn't actually meet you. I met you, but you didn't meet me.
We were internet friends, and I think.
No, actually. I actually met you in person. But it's like I said, it's I met you, but you didn't meet me type of situation.
That's so bad.
No, not at all. So
oh my gosh.
And I followed you right after that.
Oh.
So that's how it happened. But I saw you on stage at Mainnet by Messery in, I believe, 2022 again.
Tough year. Well, it wasn't a tough year yet. That was September.
Not yet, because it was in September. It wasn't too bad.
Still a good year. Yeah.
But like I said, I had met Keith Grossman. It's so funny. I met him in a non-crypto context. And we had a very nice conversation. I was like, this man is so sweet. I had no idea who he was.
Yeah.
And then I'm at Mainnet by Messery, and I'm listening on the main stage, and I see Keith Grossman, president at the time. And I was like, wait, what?
Yeah,
that's
and
crazy.
Mike Novogratz.
And he was with Mike Novogratz, exactly.
And
which they're good friends. And you were the one. Yeah, you were the No, but I was so impressed. You know, I noticed you right away. I was like, she's so good. I was like, how old is she? Is she young? Like,
we got to have you on the podcast more. You just got to come on and say nice things about me. And
no, really. I followed you since then. You were so good at, you know, targeting questions while making people super comfortable. And I don't know, it was just great. And I've known you since.
Here. That's what we're doing here.
You know, it's a full circle for me.
It is.
Entirely.
That's the circle of life.
Yeah, it's the circle of, and I love it.
Yeah. But I think you have so many great insights in the ecosystem conversation. Like, I could talk about for hours, and so can you. I think you also have a better point of view than I do, and most people, into like what makes a good ecosystem. Like, whether it's Aptos or another one, how do you kind of determine we're on the right track, or this is not the way we want to go? Or not even with Aptos, but in general, looking at other ecosystems, you're like, ugh, that looks bad. You know, like, I don't want to end up like that. Or, oh my God, that looks amazing. This is something that we should like inspire ourselves to be like.
Yeah. Well, you asked me earlier what my definition of ecosystem is. And I don't think I answered that. I think because of my role, I slightly separate ecosystem from community. Within the ecosystem team, what we do is we help the startups and the protocols get to where they need to be. And then we have people who work directly with the community being, you know, these protocols to the people building up these protocols, but mostly the users and the people who, you know, interact with the chain somehow. I make a little bit of a difference, because sometimes when you talk about ecosystem, we talk about community, but then we talk about community and I'm like, so what is what? And in that case, though, I would argue that ecosystem and community would be in the same answer that I'm going to give. And I think I wouldn't look at one specific ecosystem and say, oh, we don't want that. But I think what you don't want is to become redundant to what's already out there. Honestly. Because then, you know, if you're new and you're doing exactly what others are doing, then why am I gonna try to interact with something that I don't know yet. It's it's a little bit of a friction, right? What I really want is to have very innovative and very fun applications and to have people having fun with it and using it. And so that goes with community and ecosystem goes together because like I was saying, if you have the best protocols, but nobody's using them, then it's really sad and it's really pointless. And so I think the community is really, really important here. And when the community is growing is when your ecosystem is healthy. And I think if your ecosystem is healthy, then your blockchain is. If you see a decrease in interest from the broader space, if I would also say honestly that enterprise level is important within that same narrative because they're going to be using your technology differently from people who are native. And I think it's a different timeline, but it's as important. And so I think what you really want to see is growing interest, but products that are innovative, products that are fun. And most importantly, to me personally, a product that either solve a real problem or product that brings something to the table. Because I don't, there's a big thing about, what solution do you bring? Like, what's the problem that you're solving? Sometimes there's no problem. But you can be creating something that people really want. You're not solving their problem, but they really want it. It's really attractive in that sense. And what I really don't want to see is people who are creating problems so that they can sell you their solution, which I think has been a growing phenomenon in the space, honestly.
In what context for that? Like what types of products are you talking about?
People will give you... I could actually name specific examples.
I mean, but you can. Free speech.
I wonder if I would be fudded so bad. I might. I'm thinking about my choices right now.
How about that?
Okay. I'm going to describe. It's an experience that happened to me recently in Thailand. I hope he's not watching this, whoever that person is. So I was at Thailand Blockchain Week, right? And this guy comes and talks to us. And I asked him what he does. And first thing he tells me is that he was invited to speak at some conference that I've never heard of. And I was like, okay, you're not telling me what you do, but that's great, I guess,
He's telling you how important he is.
Exactly. Yeah. That's when you know it's about to be BS. No, and that's like a red flag from the get-go. And then I asked him again, so what do you do? And he said, I actually co-founded or founded a product that's very unique and innovative.
Go on.
So I wait a little bit. Like he's going to tell me what it is. No. So I asked him, what is it? And he told me we tokenize emotions on chain. And I said, okay. I don't know what my follow-up question should be.
Did they tokenize confusion?
Exactly. And then I asked him like, okay, why is that? And he goes, well, it's very innovative. And I say, it might be innovative, but I don't think it's useful. And I think he got a little upset and he left at that point. But that's what I'm talking about. It's maybe there is a use case for that. Who knows? That guy didn't tell me what the use case is. That's for sure. But that's what I'm talking about is that I think we entered a state where it's very strange. There's a duality into crypto has friction to entry, right? You have that, and that's why we're not into mass adoption yet, clearly. But it's also a space where it's easier to build. And so it's a very weird dynamic. It's like, might be a little hard to enter, but once you're in, you can do anything, which is amazing. That's the reason I'm where I am today here, right? It's because I didn't need a degree to enter the space and learn about it.
Yeah.
And nobody was really born into it. Nobody has, well, you have the people with a degree in cryptography.
Yeah. They've been around for a while, but yes, I get your point that you can get in at any time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think the fact that it's been showed that you can easily make money, but with a very short-sighted mindset has just made the space, a little bit too open to stuff that nobody needs.
Junk.
Yes. I was about to say, how do I not say the bad word?
Yeah.
And that's something that I see a lot. As ecosystem, we get a lot of people asking for grants or people pitching you their product. And my first question is always, but why?
Mm-hmm.
Like, why? Who's your user? And like, why do they need this? And a lot of time you don't have an answer, right?
Yeah.
And I think, when it was in 2017-ish, everybody was doing ICOs, and it was a very easy way to raise money. And I think that kind of grew the mindset of, I don't need to have a very compelling story and for VCs to agree with me. I can just create a community, sell a dream-ish kind of, and then I can raise money. But then you realize that that's why the protocols don't last in time, is because there's no actual benefit to the community or the ecosystem.
Yeah. I think it's also a variable too, because like there can be a lot of repetition in this space and copycats. And like, I don't know how many prediction markets we need, but I would argue 1 or 2, like maybe 3. So we have like an open market, but we don't need 50 plus.
Yeah.
And I feel like now because, 1 or 2 of them was successful, everyone else wants to bandwagon. But then on the other side, with like Web3 games, there should be a ton of them.
Yes.
And there might be a few winners overall, but that doesn't mean not like just because one game won, we shouldn't create any more games. So I think it all depends on each category.
Totally.
And I'm with you on your point that some things don't need to exist at all.
Yeah.
And then, other things like maybe we've beat it too hard that it's like leave the dead horse alone. Essentially,
exactly.
Like,
exactly. I couldn't
it's run
agree
its
more.
race, So
yeah. Talking about gaming is like, for example, one of my coworkers in the ecosystem has a background in music, and because he's a very big crypto native, he's always wanted to put music on chain, right? And I've always asked him. I said, but why? Like, what benefit is that going to bring to the listener and to the artist? Because I can argue with you for hours and hours on how that doesn't make sense, because music is not something that strives from scarcity, and it's not something that strives by being owned and by being protected and by being limited. It's the opposite way, right? And so when you talk about gaming, gaming is something that needs to be more. You need to have a lot of games using it, and you need to have a lot of different players, and that's how the GameFi, or however you really want to call it, is one of those things that would completely benefit from having thousands of use cases and applications. But like you said, prediction market is a good example where
I've seen enough.
Yeah.
I see the value, but I've also seen enough. And the two can coexist. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I think prediction market though is kind of recent. So I was like, in my head, I'm like, there's going to be maybe, like you said, 2-3 winners.
And the same with like meme coins even, like
meme coins
I think they're
story.
Fun. There's, you could say there's no value to them, but I actually can see the value with
there's
community, etc.
Value.
Yeah. And I think people poke fun at it, but do we need thousands of them launched every day? But no, I mean, have at it. If that makes you feel
I think
good about it.
I think meme coin, I would argue that meme coin is slightly different, because to launch one, you only need to press a button, right? On any launchpad, not to name pump.fun, but
yeah, there's one out there. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Doesn't Aptos have one too?
Yes, we do actually. And we had emoji coin also.
Yeah, there we go.
Doing it again. No, for example, we have one Aptos, and then emoji coin launched recently. I don't know if you looked into it.
I did see that. We shared that.
Yeah. The concept is a little different, because it's, you're launching an emoji. There's no words associated to it, but it's a similar idea, right? But it's very easy to launch, and it's more of a user-owned product. And I think that makes the whole difference, because it's like the casino at this point. There's a lot of luck that goes with it. And are you going to be pumping, over 1 million market cap and be the one? Maybe. And the people who put money into it believe this. And so it creates a community. So I would argue that meme coin can be limited. It becomes harder to make money off of it for sure, right? Because you have more chances of picking the wrong one and losing all your money. But it can be unlimited, because someone who's going to buy meme coin number 1 is likely to also buy the number 2 and 3. But someone who uses a prediction market is unlikely to go to a different one, because they don't need to.
Yeah.
But if you take meme coin, it's like the prediction market is the launch pad, right? The meme coin is the prediction.
Mm-hmm.
And on a prediction market, you can have as many as you want or need. It's like that's kind of more how I see it.
As long as people put value into it.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a market.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Meme coins is like, fashion. Why does such brand sell bags for $5,000?
Why does Golden Goose sell dirty sneakers?
That is, listen.
That's another conversation.
French people, listen.
Yeah.
Where's the camera? French people need to stop. They love that brand.
Yeah.
I see it in France all the
So
time.
do Americans. Yeah. It's a mess. That's another conversation. Yeah.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like what makes a brand valuable, right? It's because certain people put value into it, and so we value that they put value into it, and so it's a community as well. At the end of the day, and I think meme coin is the same type, and also you could associate meme coin with today's society's attention span is really short, right? And so most content that's being created is being created for very short term. Mm-hmm. It's disposable content at the end of the day. You have places like TikTok and Instagram. It's videos that are like 3, 4, 10 seconds long. You watch them once and then it's gone. So it's disposable. And the more you have, the more consumers you get, actually. And I think that's kind of how I see meme coins as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You brought up attention retention for communities. Mm-hmm. It's everyone has short spans, everything. Like when I'm looking at stuff, I watch it on like 2x speed, and if I'm not happy with it, I'll move immediately, which is crazy.
It's crazy.
But then again, it's like, when I'm reading like an article or book, I'm not like, I can't speed that up. I mean, I could read faster, but like I'm there, But when it comes to community and making them more long-term thinking, I'm sure that's a conversation you're having internally. Obviously, you've retained and grown the community, but then how do you think, okay, we've got them here. How can we now keep them? Because there's so many other shiny objects out there, ability to just bop around, follow the money, follow whatever cool new thing there is. But how do you retain them on Aptos?
The space is very like that as a whole, right? It's
not unique to one chain or another. Yeah.
And I don't blame people. I'm a user myself and I will go where the money is. But I also have my attachments to one chain, which for me has always been Aptos, as I was telling my story about how it actually started. But I think to retain people, you need to keep on creating value. It's literally as simple as that. And the value can be in different types of aspects. And so I think when you look at Aptos, sometimes that can be confusing to some people. But it actually makes sense to me that, for example, the more short term is going to be people who launch very quickly. So all the protocols that we talked about, right? Usually ideation to creation is less than 6 months, a lot of time. And so you get in the hands of people very often. If they like it and they want more, you have something else that comes out that they get to play with. But then you have a little bit more of the longer term play, which to me, and that's like very my personal view, I'm not speaking for the company itself, but when we look at institutions, to me, I consider institutions very important because in financial markets, it's just a reality of things, right?
Right.
We want to talk about killing the banks and, kill the middlemen and
I
the
think
banks.
that idea has passed in crypto. The original idea has moved, yes, but yes.
That was the whole narrative around it, right?
It was, yeah.
Which, to be fair, in some countries, yes. Not the US, not the West,
like replace it where it needs to be.
Yeah. Like there's countries where the currency is so volatile, you can trust it. And in that case, yes, it's a totally different story. But in our little bubble of America and Europe and most of Asia, honestly, too, when you look at Korea and stuff, we don't need to kill the banks and the institutions.
The banks could stay.
They can
Whether
stay.
or not we like them.
Yeah. And so, for example, when we talked at the very beginning about more institutional partnerships. And I think that's a more long-term play that will bring value to its users as well, but it's less short-term, right? And that's also something that keeps you and retains you on the chain is that, first of all, it gives you a signal that the chain can be taken seriously in many ways. but it also gives you a perspective on, okay, something is going to happen with the chain and with this institution over the long term. And so it gives you kind of two benefits. You have the protocols that you can play with right now. Having a good vibe is like so important to keep your community. Obviously, if you start to have like, I don't know, you know, the bad actors, the bad people, if you start to have a lot of scams, and you're going to kill the community right away. Security we take super at heart, obviously. But yeah, having, you know, a good energy there, having a super secure network, making sure that the product that you push out there and endorse are, you know, probably audited and have the right people behind them. And then, yeah, on the partnerships front is making sure that you show the people that all the things are going to happen slower, but they're going to happen and they're out there. And I don't really think you have to pick between the two. People value FaceTime, even though the space is super global and digital.
Yes.
And a lot of time I've been speaking with teams who were considering different chains. And then we met in person and they said, we're going to be on Aptos. It's like, you know, it becomes a real factor for growing your community in your ecosystem. And so I think actually, physical presence is really important too, for sure.
Yeah, love it. We're here together in person.
We're here together, yeah.
I always say the podcast in person, you just get like more energy, different. More banter.
Well, yeah, obviously. You know, there's real energy circulating in the room, so.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, me
okay,
too.
Last major question. Looking to 2025, how are you looking at ecosystem success for Aptos? Like, how would you define it?
That's a tricky question because the space, obviously, as you know,
changes.
More than changes. It's insane.
Yeah.
Right now, we're, you know, considering that we're in a bull market. Some people say it's the beginning of it. Some people say, oh, I feel like we're more in the middle. But at the end of the day, we don't know if it's going to be over tomorrow because something, God forbid, happens. If it's going to be 6 more months, if it's going to be a year. And I think as a blockchain, your strategy and your focus in the way that you support people is different whether you're in a bull market or bear market. I've always said that bear market are for builders. It's more quiet.
Did you say that? Yes.
Right? It's more quiet. You can hibernate type of thing and just take your time to build. The bull market, you have no time to build. You have to get it out, you know, as soon as possible. So it's a little tricky to talk about 2025 because it's going to very much also depend on the state of the market. But what I do want to see happening is products that are super fun and like crazy, degenerate. Bring me, oh, by the way, I can make a little announcement, but
bring
me your most degenerate ideas.
Oh
insane thing. I want to hear insanity.
You might regret that. Yeah.
You think? Cut. Yeah, just kidding. No, I really want to see that. I want to see that happen. I think this is what makes the space thrive at its core because it's these Web3 native people who keep the space alive in times like this, to be honest. So bring me your most degenerate ideas. I want things that are fun. I want people to start exploring Aptos. I kind of want people to break this mindset. And I've heard you, I think you agree with me on that, actually. I am not a single chain maxi.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Right?
I'm very multi-chain. I've said it. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm multi-chain too. And I am at Aptos and I've been building on Aptos before being inside Aptos and I love Aptos.
Yeah.
And I would love to see more people come. But like, I want people to understand you don't have to abandon your native chain for that to happen. You can be at both. Like, I don't understand this mindset of, oh, I'm not going to betray my chain.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. This is kind of weird.
Like I shop at Target and Walmart.
Exactly.
And Whole Foods, which I don't know if that's the same.
You go to Trader Joe's and you go to Whole Foods.
Yeah.
Depends on what you need and what you want.
Yeah. And I love them all in different ways.
Yes. And it's complementary actually when you think about it. You get some ingredients from Whole Foods and some from Trader Joe's. And to me, it's the same thing. And so I would really like for people to get out of this mindset of touching Aptos is like betraying myself or my chain or my community, and just explore and try it out.
Well, you don't want people to leave Aptos, but you know what I mean? Like if they're on Aptos and then maybe they explore something else, like that's fine, you know?
But I feel like most people do anyway somehow, right?
You should.
Like, yeah, you definitely should. Don't stay in your bubble.
Yeah.
and you can have a chain of preference, which might become Aptos if you start really playing with it and stuff. But yeah, so I think that's something that I really want to see on Aptos in 2025 is very degenerate fun ideas for people to play with. And people from other chains that would come and explore. And whether you're very interested on the deep tech side, we have the perfect people for this. Our CTO every day that you know pretty well is absolutely amazing and will literally spend hours with you, talk about it. But also on the rest of the community side, that's a little bit more, you know, fun and trying out financial product and speculative product. To speak in proper legal terms. But yeah, that's what I'm excited for. That's what I want to see. That's what I'm excited for. And I just want to see the current existing ecosystem, the teams that we have, thrive and expand and have fun and build more features and
100%. Last thing, Alix, can you leave us with a piece of advice, something that you've carried with you throughout your time in this industry?
I think there's two. It's short wins. And it's helped me in this industry, but in my life as a whole, I would say. The first one is, and it's going to sound a little lame, maybe coming from me like that, but when a door closes, a window opens. And that's helped me so many times. This didn't happen. And I think it's really important as a founder in the space, actually. This didn't happen the way I wanted to. But that means that there's a better way to do this probably, right? And that's kind of how I've always, you know, moved through things is when I hit a wall, I look for a little hole in the wall, like a window, right? And so that would be my advice. And the second one is never take no for an answer because no usually means not yet. And so I guess both of them is really related to like persistence and perseverance and as a founder in crypto, best believe you're going to need it.
100%.
Big time.
100%. Yes. Okay. Alix, thank you so much for coming on today. It was an absolute pleasure.
It was great. Thank you. Thank you for your time.